Ah, this looks like a good place to get a drink. Come on.
Sure, but try not to get us thrown out this time.
Why'd you guys get thrown out this time?
You can say that again.
Hey!
If my memory banks are functioning correctly, I do seem to recall you did burn the last establishment down to the ground.
What?
Yeah?
Wait, you set what on fire?
There's a spot in the corner. We can set up there.
Activating holonet. Connection established. Beginning broadcast.
Hello to all the planets out there in the galactic core and outer rim. The netcast you have tuned into is the Cantina Band. This is episode 0. I am Adam Paulauski, and to my right is Brian Brushwood.
Hello, Korriban. It's the only planet I'm talking to. The rest of you planets could take a hike.
Okay, I see where your loyalties are going to lie. But, Brian, we're not alone. Who is our mystery guest over there?
Of the Frogpants Network, host of The Instance and a million other podcasts that are way more popular than this one, Scott Johnson. How are you doing, Scott?
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Thrilled to be here. Of course, I am no stranger to the Schwood, but Adam, this is our first time meeting, and it's nice to meet you. Thanks for having me on.
All right, so I figured first thing we should do is we should all talk about like how far we've got. It's like we're talking about a girl for the first time. Like we all know it's going to be awesome when we get to meet and touch a girl, but like so far I've only gotten to second base, and it was like for one clumsy hour at E3, but it was magical, and I think about it all the time. So far, like none of us are in the beta program. I played at E3 for about 45 minutes, and that was the Tatooine experience. You played, Adam, at PAX briefly, right?
Yeah, I went on a great grand day-long journey to go stand in line and play a mid-level 30 Flashpoint 4-man group thing for about an hour, 45 minutes, somewhere in there. And walked away infected. So
and it was totally unrestricted. Like you got to play and do whatever you want with it, right?
Yeah. You know, they basically paired me up with 3 other people. They showed us, which classes do you guys want to play. There was enough time in line where they handed you, a document showing you here's what your special should do. It's not the best way to play, first experience a game like that, but it was enough to, if you're an MMO vet, you knew enough how to jump in, make it work, and get a feel for how the game felt combat-wise. And the big deal was this was the first time they were letting folks do group content in their infamous group conversation. So yes, I've had. So
you got to play. You got to actually play in a group and do the group conversations.
Absolutely,
That's
and
awesome.
you got to do solo content.
Yeah, everything was solo. Although I paired up randomly with another person, and it was cool because they said that that they were connected. Of course, they didn't spawn a separate instance for the beta testing. I mean, it's the actual game. So I hooked up with other real players out there, and they knew that there were people there at E3 who were showing up in this zone. Have you touched it yet, Scott?
Only in my sweetest dreams. I mean, I have not had a chance yet, but I have been soaking in it, as it were, for the last, I don't know, couple of months, hardcore, like sort of approaching it like I have every other MMO in the shadow of Blizzard over the last few years, and going, okay, I don't know about this, I don't know about this. And those games have all kind of had a little brief splash, and then kind of faded off a little bit. And what's really interesting about right now, if Old Republic comes out when we hope and think it will, it could not be, I believe, more perfectly timed, because we've got a 6-year-old game in the form of World of Warcraft, a game that is still got a lot of players, but there is some waning, sort of interest in that game. People going, I've been doing the same thing for quite a while now. I kind of need something new. It's not a knock against the game, but it's them saying, maybe something new would be nice. Star Wars is an easy fit, and I'm starting to buy into the hype. But I will just say this, and this is something I want to get out, because me and Schwood have had not arguments, but you and I have had a couple of little back and forths on the internet about our expectation for this game.
Yes.
You believe that it's Jesus coming, and I think it's dangerous to bet against Blizzard in any way. And the reason I say that is we've got a track record of 2 different companies here. One that has never not had an enormous hit in their library, and one that's kind of had a few missteps. And the one that's had a few missteps is BioWare, and they've also got a company now that kind of co-owns them that is full of missteps, and they make me nervous. Now, none of that has anything to do with the game, and I may just be completely blown away, but I have learned that betting against Blizzard is dangerous this is maybe the only game I've seen come in the last 6 years that comes close to me going, okay, now this is competition. This means something for that player base that needs something new. This could be their thing. And the more I see, the more I like. But I guess I'm holding back just that tiny little bit of, hype for to see what happens after launch, to see how I feel about the game after I've had a chance to play it. And I so hope they pull this off, because
this is really part of the reason that I wanted to have you on is, I listened to some of your other stuff. I actually listened to the instance, despite the fact that I don't actually play World of Warcraft.
No, call World of Warcraft. Like that's how far out of the scene is. I don't even play Wizards and Warcraft.
What is this Warcraft I keep hearing about? I played vanilla back when Star Wars Galaxies kind of changed their game system, about a year, I think, half a year into the shelf life of World of Warcraft. And I got bored easily, and all my friends were also on a big PvP server. And, I got into the contested area, started getting ganked, and I gave up and was bored. But I wanted to get Scott on because, he's obviously like a very famous World of Warcraft player, and I know you're a big fan of the game and that you're very entrenched in it. And so I thought it'd be nice to have you along to bring your insights in the MMO genre to this discussion.
Sure, and I hope what I want people to come away from if they hear this is that I'm approaching this game and all other games really when they get announced. Warhammer is a good example. Rift's a good example. These games, they come and they go, and I approach them all with an open mind, and I approach them as a player first. So as much as the instance has invested in World of Warcraft and its ability to succeed. Yeah. And its user base, certainly loves that game. We've got a huge listenership who play that game. There's no doubting the power of World of Warcraft. But as a player, I'm always hungering for that next hot thing. And being a devotee of things like Mass Effect and Baldur's Gate and games that make BioWare, the touchstones of their game quality, then I think about that and go, oh man, this could be the one. Right. So I'm trying to be as non-biased about it as humanly possible. When I say don't get it bet against Blizzard, it's as a gamer who has never been let down by that company.
Well, but keep in mind, I don't think it's been the pretenders to the throne. I don't think have failed because Blizzard reached out and smacked them from the heavens. I think they failed because they failed to capture imaginations or to create an engaging world. For example, I got into City of Heroes and I loved it, and there was pretty much nothing World of Warcraft could do to take me away from City of Heroes, because if I have the choice between flying around and shooting lightning out of my fists and killing bad guys in a cityscape, I'd much rather do that than fight wizards and goblins. And they were very different games, and they both did very well to the different area they were speaking to. And I don't know that this is necessarily, I don't know. It's like Star Wars is fantasy in that it doesn't, provide scientific explanations for any of the crap that's in there. It's pretty much space opera fantasy. But I don't know that it's so fantasy that people who are into that genre, that kind of storytelling, are going to leave World of Warcraft in order to play Star Wars: The Old Republic.
Well, that's a really good point. And here's kind of where I stand on that. You just described something that I think is going to be a problem in splitting the MMO space in general, which is you've got a whole lot of people where fantasy is their thing, but also the mechanics of an MMO lend themselves really well to the fantasy genre. We're talking about, ages-old D&D structure. We're talking about stuff that's been around since Tolkien put his book out. It's stuff that we're used to. We know the mechanics of the game fit. Star Wars comes along with Galaxies, tries to replicate that, at least in the EverQuest mold of things, but it kind really of fails miserably. And it's not because of the look or the milieu or the thing that people were playing in, because they love that space, they love that look, that era, that everything else. They love Star Wars. That game failed on a very basic mechanical level.
Correct. It wasn't fun to play, and it didn't guide you effortlessly through an experience. It didn't make you, when you're a dancer and you just walk into a bar and type /dance and walk away for 8 hours, you don't walk away from the game feeling like a total badass,
Right.
And I have to step lightly around Adam as I say all this, because I know Adam put a lot of time and actually became a Jedi in Galaxies.
I want to kind of throw that info. Yeah, I want to at least throw that into the conversation, and that's Star Wars Galaxies got me playing MMOs.
That was your first.
Yeah, I had tinkered with EverQuest Online Adventures on the PS2. and was like, okay, this is a neat idea. I like that. Oh, you see that mountain over there? I can run up on that mountain and go, kill stuff and find things and explore. That all really appealed. But I was bored to tears at the environment and the world and the lore. I was like, man, I got to learn what all this mumbo jumbo means.
Right.
But if this was Star Wars, I'd be all over it. And then Galaxies came out. So yeah, 2 years into the game, they broke it by, I always equate it to, the analogy is, imagine you're playing a real-time strategy game for 2 years. You log in every night, play for a couple hours. You have friends you play this RTS with. And then one day you log in and it's a first-person shooter.
Right.
That's how radical the change was. So I left. That's when I tried WoW. And I realized that I was a fan of sort of the whole MMO thing at that point.
Right.
And I was looking for something to replace it. To the credit of the team that came later on, I did find myself getting pulled back into Galaxies a few years later, would check in. And then the last couple of years I was playing with friends, and the game had been put back to, honestly, being a bit of a copy of World of Warcraft. Everybody now had classes that were defined and roles. So they certainly were trying to fix what they had done, but at the end of the day, everyone was gone. And
it was ambitious what they started with, and what they ended up with, ultimately was a weird watering down of that. But even in Old Republic, what we're seeing is BioWare's accepting and embracing, in fact, the holy trinity of character classes. They have DPS, they have healing, and they have tanks, and that's okay. But I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, but here's the thing that's different, and this is what's interesting. BioWare is, there's not going to be a magic mix you have to have for a group. Everybody has the ability to res. Everybody can, I think most of the classes, except for like the frontline hardcore DPS like Jedi Knight and Sith, Warrior, can all be spec'd to be a healer if you want to be. And they're saying that, if you don't have a healer in your group, you pull out your companion who's a healer, and they can substitute for your storyline quest stuff. You can't use them in an operation or an end game thing, but you can use them during your day in and day out play experience.
Well,
which is awesome, which is totally rad.
Yeah, that's one of the things that really surprised me. Did I hear correctly that they said you can play through the entire experience without ever teaming up with another player? Like by having your companions, you can essentially treat it as a single player game that you just happen to have to play with other people walking around in the same space.
Well, Adam, that's until they hit some sort of quote unquote raid endgame. Right. Those scenarios. Yeah. But other than that, I've heard the same. When WoW technically does. I mean, again, the things they've lifted from WoW are great. Like, they're the things that made WoW groundbreaking, and they're things that set standards that they kind of have to live by if they don't want to break people's experience or expectations. It's what they do on top of that that I'm most excited about.
Well, before we talk about that, one thing I did want to do is kind of go through the list of pitfalls that we're worried about, things that we are afraid might happen down the road, and I'm betting that Scott has more of those than either of us do. But and especially like, tell me, what are your big concerns?
Okay, a number one concern, because honestly, most of my concerns, or I shouldn't say most, some of my concerns have been softened with recent video releases, recent commentary from developers, and recent things we've learned about the game.
There's not much left unknown.
Yeah, it's pretty clear now, and a lot of those things that we've learned have kind of cleared things up. But here are the two major things for me. Number one, as excited as I am about the storytelling element of this game, and 5 of you going into a scenario and having a dynamic conversation with NPCs, with each other, choosing dark and light choices, all this stuff is really cool, right?
Yeah.
But I assume, now part of this is me making an assumption, and I can't find anything to the contrary, but I assume a lot of this content is going to be retreadable. In other words, if we run this scenario, we may want to run it again Wednesday night because I want to try to get that drop we didn't get last time.
Yeah,
or whatever it is. And you get XP and all this other stuff. How am I going to get to skip through stuff? Am I going to be able to do I have to sit and listen to that story again exactly the way it was told the 3 other times I was in there?
Well, let me ask you, the way it is right now in World of Warcraft is, the real question is, if everyone's on the same page and you're just running through it so you could get a different drop, well then of course you do have that ability to skip and you could spacebar through everything. But it's the same problem you have with World of Warcraft, because if somebody has not played this level before, wants to get the story, you don't sit there and you don't wait 5 minutes for him to read all the text and to understand the grasp the reasons for why he's on this particular quest. Instead, you're just like, oh, it's just kind of this. That's why. Don't worry about it. And then you just hit spacebar through it, and then off you guys go.
That's true. That's true.
So in effect, the quote unquote problem that you have is that you're afraid that the conversations of the storytelling will be so engaging that it will cause social awkwardness when you try to tell somebody to just spacebar through all this. Don't worry about it. Like, literally all that's happening is they've sweetened the content that you would have to spacebar through to get to the actual quest.
Right. And that's true. I'm thinking more of like, all right, well, if you do a 25-man encounter, the way they tell story in World of Warcraft is not through an a cutscene that's set up like a film or something, the way that this is, which, again, I absolutely love. It's got that BioWare touch. I'm having Mass Effect pains as I watch it. It's just awesome. But then I think to myself, all right, well, let's say 3 of you know each other. The other 2 guys are strangers. They've seen this 6 times. They just want to skip through it. Do they have the ability to do that and ruin everybody else's story experience? Do you have the ability to skip through them because they're newbies? Like, where does the equity come in that interaction? Because an MMO ultimately boils down to how well does this work with multiple people, whether they're friends or not. And I don't know how that works. And maybe it's nitpicky as hell. I as I say it, it sounds like it might be. But
No,
it's something I worry
No,
about. It's something that seems special, yet might be, as soon as we've all seen it once, we're going to go, ugh, please, let me just get through this.
So we got a couple different things going on, and I know that you're very much entrenched in sort of the end game content of World of Warcraft, right?
Yeah, I love the single player I shouldn't say single player, but the questing content of World of Warcraft honestly is my favorite thing. Like, leveling and getting new stuff and experiencing that story is my favorite thing. But once I'm done with that, all I am left with is this end game content. Yeah. It's actually one of the things I have a lot of hopes about this game for, is that maybe they'll figure out ways to make that more compelling, but that's maybe a different discussion. But you're right. I'm rating right now is what I'm doing. So what they're doing is like your class, they call it your class story. And your class story is sort of your single player experience. And you can bring friends along, and they've got actually bonus systems in place that reward you with social XP for grouping with other players during content you can do solo. The more you do with other people, the more they reward you, and then you spend that on gear and whatnot. Sure. The person who's on the actual quest kind of runs the show automatically. They can decide whether or not the people you're running with can toggle through your cutscenes or even be involved in your cutscenes, or if they're just there to help you as firepower. You control that level of how people interact. But obviously the game's geared towards rewarding to let it happen. Let people play and see where it goes. Something like Operations is going to be more of a big movie moment. The attack on the bunker on Endor, the X-Wing assault on the Death Star. That's what they're calling them operations. Mm-hmm. They'll be 2-hour long, 3-hour long, multiple objectives, but they won't be very heavily, the story will have led up there, but once you're in that environment, it's much more focused on, all right, 25 people, go do whatever. And for the record, as of this podcast, they haven't announced how big those endgame groups will be. They're being a little coy about it right now. Right. And are the operations that's the larger scale content. They're not, if you're doing a little 5-man thing, what are they calling that?
Those are flashpoints. So
flashpoints,
like the 4 or 5-man group things are more of like turning points on a planet. Like, as the storyline culminates, you'll hit one of those flashpoints. And but yeah, the operations are like the big, huge group events.
Now,
what you guys have both described to me are incredibly compelling sounding single player stories. Basically, it sounds like KOTOR, the amazing games that this is all sort of led to.
Because
I wonder sometimes, this
isn't
a complaint, but I sometimes wonder, wouldn't we all, as solo RPGers who love the Star Wars universe, aren't we really just asking to play a giant single player RPG that would maybe have a lot of patches and cool content later? I mean, isn't that kind of, but it seems like that's how we're all going to play it first anyway.
Right, correct. And in fact, but here's the thing. What if essentially it was exactly that, a fantastic single player RPG experience, but at the end of it, all of a sudden you found yourself in a giant clubhouse with all your buddies who have also just finished that, and you guys get to go on these operations together. And I'll tell you what I'm excited about is the PvP stuff, where you could elect to jump in to be honest, the way they framed it when I talked to them about PvP, it reminded me a lot of the things that I love about Team Fortress 2, where it's this, or Battlefield 2 kind of experience, where, I don't know, it almost seems like an almost separate second game coming on after the end of this awesome RPG experience.
Mm. Yeah, and if it is that, then that's amazing. The reason I even throw it out, and this isn't even to dissent because I love an MMO experience, but I did find myself even in WoW playing a lot of by myself, like even avoiding, not being antisocial, but avoiding groups, not wanting, I just want to do stuff at my own pace. I want to read these quests. I want to go through the motions. I want to do my thing.
Right.
Because I love a good, my own pace kind of RPG. I love Diablo for that example, or for that reason, for example. So here's what I'm hopeful about is that we can have that experience and never feel like, well, man, I should just be doing this in a single player game, or they should have made one which would have given them more graphical options, better use of the tech, because like it or not, an MMO is forced down from where it could be from say a Skyrim style experience to an MMO, because you just cannot push that kind of geometry and size and scale.
That's a really good point. And plus also storytelling. Well, and up until now, not only was it a case of logistically that you couldn't push the same kind of experience to a multiplayer environment, but even the storytelling, you couldn't make a multiplayer experience. That to me is the single most revolutionary and exciting parts of this. So you've got all the mechanics, you've got all the play mechanics, clearly modeled on what's worked very, very well for WoW. But then you have the most novel, exciting new aspect, which is, the voice acting and the storytelling and the agonizing decisions that they make you choose. And that part happens to be created by the greatest video game company when it comes to telling, engaging, agonizing stories like this, where, your Mass Effect 2 is where you have to decide who lives and who dies. That to me is the part, and in fact, we talked about this off the air when I was reading the article on, Penny Arcade, talking about, I forget which one of the two it was who had played it, but he put some thoughts out there and talked about how the fourth wall experience of making these choices. He found himself making decisions that cost him XP because, well, my character wouldn't do that. That'd be so out of character for him. He would save this girl, or he would do it this way. And it causes, that to me is the thing that I'm excited about, because in City of Heroes, I played as a little tiny guy named Electronome, and I felt a very close bond for him. I was like, I really got into being this guy, and that didn't take with me on World of Warcraft, and I'm looking forward to having that experience with Star Wars: The Old Republic.
Yeah, and the control they give you over how you look and who you are is really key for me. And World of Warcraft has failed at this for the last 6 years for me. It is not. I mean, my character has a persona, and my pet has a persona that extends even outside of the game. But that's almost because there's the show. That's really the main reason that happened. In game, I'm not unlike 1,000 million other orcs who are running around with a tiger.
It's very
and unfortunately, I think that they missed the boat a little bit on that. I don't know what their plans are for their new MMO, but that was something that was sorely missed. In this game, I'll obviously have a lot more control over that. I can build a character that I can, sort of really get behind and care about. And if they bring that BioWare magic that they bring to games like Mass Effect, and to some degree Dragon Age, although I feel like Dragon Age is one of their weaker efforts.
Right.
I feel like if they can do that, though, that will be key to me enjoying this game on a higher level than I have in a typical MMO experience. I'm very hopeful.
And that I actually really like that you brought that up, because man, it's so funny how many, when you approach an MMO, there are so many totally separate game experiences built into it. And I forget how many hours I spent going into costume shops in City of Heroes to deck out with these alternate costumes and everything. And maybe it was a case like that was something where I thought City of Heroes excelled, and I agree. World of Warcraft, it just wasn't fun. Maybe you get 18 varieties of cape, or the point is, the nature of it being a superhero video game allowed you to go to different places with your costume. You could be minimalist, you could be outrageous, you could be comical, you could look badass, you could look techno, you could look fantasy, and you were able to pull all of that. Obviously, World of Warcraft, you had to stick to a certain type of fantasy flavor, but there are things that I'm seeing in the videos released so far with Star Wars: The Old Republic that have me hopeful that you can do some reasonably wild things with your costuming. Like I loved seeing the smuggling space cowboy in one of the recent movies. That guy, I was like, I saw him for 2 seconds.
And the hat.
Yeah, I saw it for 2 seconds. I'm like, I want to be that guy.
I know the answer to this, actually.
Good.
Clearly, I saw Scott tweet out and post to Google Plus today. He was like, "Oh, I'm watching these progression videos of armor from Star Wars: The Old Republic. This game needs to be here now." They really highlight in those videos on the main site the sort of what you start with and how wild you can get at the end of the game. They say there are thousands and thousands of different looks in the game and armor, but it is heavily based on certain looks belong to certain classes.
Well, I'm fine with that, as long as...
But they want people to be able to identify that's a Jedi counselor, that's a Sith warrior, that's a smuggler.
Brian, you're not looking to have, I want to be a giant fat guy today. You're just saying, let me be green and let me have more horns than the last guy.
And you know what? It also is like, let me be a little bit silly. Let me be like, holy crap, that's definitely Barack Obama walking around in a Jedi outfit, you know? Like that was my favorite part of, in many ways, City of Heroes, and I didn't recognize it until I finally went to Dragon Con. That was one of my favorite aspects of City of Heroes, is that you got the Dragon Con experience when you could turn the corner. Like I remember there's this one, I only saw them briefly walking by, but they were a superhero group called the Lipstick Lesbians, and they were all had matching uniforms. They're all hot girls, and I'm like, that's genius. And there you walk around, there's another guy who's clearly Cobra Commander, and I'm like, oh, that's brilliant. You know, I love playing dress up in game too. I'm a wicked fashionista. Even if
part of that is because you, Brian, I know, like, you crowdsource like nobody's business. I've seen you do it on NSFW and other things, and it's actually kind of impressive to behold. And so you appreciate the fact that the game can make an experience that's really great and fun,
right?
But players are going to do stuff that no one expects.
It's those emergent properties that I want to surprise and delight me. And I can't believe I'm saying this because I tend to be a purist about canon, but I don't even mind if it's a little bit outrageous, you know, and even if it takes you out of the game a little bit. I think that would be, I would rather have the fun and excitement of discovering so many outrageous ideas expressed by other people than keep everything in this tightly regulated, perfect, you know, canon experience.
Yeah. So Adam, let me throw this at you and then you can tell me if you think this is also crazy. So my other concern about the game is what we've been talking about, which is they're building a primarily single-player experience that they hope is more accessible to average players because everybody knows about Star Wars, even if they're not familiar with this 3,000 years before Luke stuff.
Yeah.
So they're going to approach this and go, oh, Star Wars, I can play that. These other ones look complicated and scary to me, but this looks like something I can sink my teeth into.
Oh, you know what?
Are they going to alienate players who are expecting heavy-duty endgame and that kind of routine? Because that is what Blizzard's really sold people on and kept, 12 million players playing for 6 years, is they have provided something to do at endgame, and that all other games have kind of failed to do well. They have pulled off really well, and despite the fact that some people maybe are tiring of that routine, it was still a strong routine. It's a 6-year routine. How do you feel this game will fight that? Because that's a concern of mine, is that it won't be able to appease that hardcore base.
I completely understand that, and I know a lot of friends who are like that. WoW has, like you said, has certainly sort of set people's expectations. They want to make sure that the person who might be shy, who may not want to interact with somebody, or is new to MMOs, where people get scared about that, and they want to make sure those folks are going to be able to at least play through the class storyline and get that Mass Effect experience we've gotten, for example, with their story, but if you want a group, they're making it very clear that if you group, you're going to get a more interesting experience out of the story, because everybody bringing their player classes to the mix changes things up. The social experience, rewarding you with gear that you can't get any other way. Same thing, end game. They're making it very clear that you are going to have so much to do. It's going to take you years to finish this content.
Well, and maybe that's the answer to Scott's earlier concern about what happens the 5th time that I play through this exact same quest again? Maybe their answer is that they want to have so much content that you're not going to ever get around to playing it a 5th time.
Yeah. Oh no, I only have 25 end rate operations 8 months into the game to choose from. Never mind expansions and whatever else they end up doing down the road. but they're going to make sure that all the different, player factions that make up an MMO are all equally taken care of. They've been most tight-lipped about massive PvP details and with the operation details. And they're trying not to spoil surprises, really, more than anything else. But no, I think that folks that come from a heavy-duty raiding environment and want these intensive experiences are going to get it. And as a matter of fact, what is kind of interesting is they're even giving single-player people end-game content. There's an entire planet in the game that is going to be dedicated to solo players to go do down. Tonight I don't feel like doing an end game with everybody. I want to go do something else. There's an entire planet dedicated for those players. But
That's
they're making it very clear
approach.
that there's going to be just tons of group and end game
better
and world
gear, or
bosses.
better drops, or better story, or whatever. If you group with people, is a much more compelling argument than hey. Group with your friends because it's fun to have your buddy with you,
right?
Which is really all that WoW is giving people. They used to have it so some quests you could only accomplish with 3 people, 4 people, and they would tell you so.
Gated sucks too.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like if you can't find 3 or 4 people to finish those things, that's what's horrible.
Well, and that's one thing. And forgive me, it's been a jumble. I can't. It's hard to separate the rumors from what's confirmed. But one of my favorite aspects about City of Heroes was the sidekicking system. The fact that you could pair up with somebody who was 20 levels ahead of you and go experience the content. And it was a little bit tougher. You were a couple levels behind, spec'd up, and you didn't get new powers that you didn't already have. But you were able to build XP and have the whole experience. Are they doing something similar like that on Star Wars: The Old Republic?
Yes, that was always a huge pain in my butt, and that's what kept new players from Star Wars Galaxies, I think, even after they fixed it, and it was a much more balanced game, and the end game content was very fun. The game really was designed to, new friends would come in, they go, wow, this is so cool. Oh, you got a lightsaber. Look at that. Oh, it's a land speeder. Oh, and everyone geeks out. And then you say, well, that's great. I'm glad you're here. Here's the guild chat. I'll see you in about 6 weeks, maybe 8, when you get to cap, and then we'll all go play together, okay? Bye.
Assuming I'm still into the game by then, because you don't know. I mean, I might be bored.
That's what I ran into with World of Warcraft. Like when I tried to join World of Warcraft, all of my friends were, way higher than me, and I was never going to catch up. So in this, they've made it very clear that you got friends that join the game later on, and they're level 10, and they've hit their level 10 flashpoint, and they would like some help. You can go back and play with them, and you will gain, perks and bonuses and whatnot for appropriate for your level.
Right.
But you're not going to impact the lower level person you came with. In Galaxies, if you brought a lower level person and group with them, they get 1 XP for everything you did. Know, so yeah, they're definitely making sure that people can mix up of different ranges and whatnot.
Well, you've described one. There's like a handful of elephants in the room with MMOs that have been around for years and years and years, and many of them have been killed by Blizzard, but there are many more that are still like that. A large portion of the game right now plays this game because their friends play it. I mean, we founded and I belong to a guild that is now 7,000 players strong, and that guild is cohesive because of the fact that they're friends and they found a place where they can kind of find common ground and all of that. But even that group is starting to expand. We just announced yesterday that we are going to be a Sith guild in the Old Republic, and that we've already have a guild running on Rift. We have another portion of players playing Eve online. We have a whole bunch more that just get on Steam every night and have Steam nights playing Team Fortress 2 and whatever the heck they can get their hands in. So there's definitely a move toward we better make sure the guild has lots of games to play, not just let's make sure there's one guild in World of Warcraft to play. And I think that Old Republic, to again stand the test of time and stand the test of Blizzard, needs to be able to accommodate that hardcore base that also is a huge bunch of people who love to play together, and give them reasons to do that. So far, what you've described and what I've read and seen seems to support that, and that's good.
So I've got a question. One of the things that BioWare did very well in Knights of the Old Republic was set up mini games that you would play along the quest. For example, playing Pazaak. How great would it be? And is there any rumors of content like that being in Star Wars: The Old Republic? And you go to a local bar and play Pazaak or some other new game, or how great would it be if you had the equivalent of poker nights or giant poker tournaments for real Imperial credits?
Yeah, Sabak, I think is the card.
Oh wait,
game.
what am I thinking? No, Pazaak was something.
No.
What is Pazaak?
Pazaak is like it's sort of like poker. Chase yeah. No, they're saying there's not going to be mini games at launch. I actually specifically asked James Olin myself. I went to a meet and greet after the PAX event, and had kind of pinned him in a corner for 15 minutes and, picked his brain as much as I could before I, felt socially awkward and wanted to let him move on. He definitely said that it's on their wall of crazy. They have a wall of crazy. These are features that they know the player base is rabid for, but in the interest of time, they will not be in the game at launch, but they will be adding after the game goes live. And yes, mini games, things of that nature are all on the wall of crazy and all known. People want them, and they're definitely going to come after the game launches.
Do they have a lot of that stuff in World of Warcraft already?
You mean like the crazy stuff? Absolutely. Like, for example, mods alone. Well, PopCap Games has 2 official mods for the game. One is Peggle and one is Bejeweled. You can play these games in World of Warcraft.
Wow,
that's a real literal sort of translation of an actual game into this place. So it's not like you walk into a place and everyone's playing Peggle at a tavern. It's not like that,
right? But
it's kind of this independent thing you play on this interface layer. But in the game itself, there are all kinds of weird, like certain quests. There's one quest, speaking of PopCap, that is basically a recreation of Plants vs. Zombies, and to accomplish that quest, you have to essentially play that game. And it's in the world. Like, there's big strips of land, and you've got these plants that are shooting stuff, and you have to play that game.
That's awesome.
Driving sequences, flying sequences. I mean, there are a lot of examples, I think, of kind of what that stuff is. But also, World of Warcraft has decided a long time ago to sort of embrace the crazy. You can build a motorcycle and ride that thing around that's powered on steam, and the gnomes and the goblins can build all kinds of crap like helicopters. And that game has decided that it does not get too worked up about being super serious about its lore. They've let things get pretty wacky.
That's a good question, though. Like, is the Star Wars lore, is that universe inherently serious or consistent enough that they're not going to allow these tongue-in-cheek kind of wink-wink things in there?
Well,
I'm sure there'll be humor, but
Old Republic is a pretty serious milieu.
Yeah,
but if you think about Star Wars proper, there's a lot of goofy crap.
Yeah, like Mon Calamari cruisers, and
there's gonna be a lot of humor in there. BioWare has a great sense of humor, but there's enough bigger things to pod racing, speeder racing, hollow chess. There's enough in the Star Wars universe to make tons of mini games happen. Hang out in a cantina and play your buddy a game of hollow chess, something I've always wanted to do in Galaxies, and that never happened.
So let me ask you this, actually, since I know you've read literally everything written about Star Wars, the Old Republic to date, and which, by the way, can we just agree, are we going to call it Tor, SWTOR, Star Wars?
I'm calling it Tor. What are you calling it, Scott?
I call it Old Republic. So as far as like an acronym, I haven't settled on one yet. They all sound bad to me right now.
Yeah, I think it's going to collapse down to Tor. I think it's one syllable, it's easy, and it's the only thing it has to compete with is the horror publishing book company.
Yeah, that's true too. That's true too.
But one of the things that is a giant black hole in my understanding of the game so far is what they're doing with ships, and it sounded awesome. And when I spoke to them, he said that you will be able to trick out your ship, but the way the ship sequences will play, he stopped short of calling it arcadey, but he said it'll be a little bit more skill-based, although it will certainly help to have a better ship for it. And I was so fascinated to know what the experience is going to be like. What do we know about it as it stands right now?
It's going to, Star Wars Galaxies really recreated X-Wing versus TIE Fighter with updated graphics in their world.
Oh, I got excited for a second.
A lot of folks were expecting that.
Yeah.
But really what Old Republic, with the devs over there have said is to make that game really, really good up to our standards, we're looking at another 2 years developing a whole separate game. Right. So they went the route of, for now, we're going to give you, when you want to play around in space, there's going to be space missions you can take, and you'll take on a third-person view of your ship, and it'll be, it'll be like, what was that, Rogue Squadron. It'll be a bit Rogue Squadron, from back in the day.
That's not a terrible idea. I love Rogue Squadron.
Yeah, the reality was they made a really deep sim kind of experience in Galaxies, and it literally took me like 7 years to get one character to master pilot.
Oh my gosh!
So just once you had the ship to insta travel, getting the pilot, like master pilot, if you weren't digging space, wasn't a huge priority. So but I never really took advantage of it, and most players never did. Although it had its fans, those diehards. I think this is totally the way to go for now. It's like, no, I'd rather, you give me an arcadey shooter, in a ship that I can upgrade. I'm fine with that. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'll play that. But if
Yeah.
you want me to, hang out in space for hours on end to shoot stuff over and over, I'm gonna get bored with that pretty quick.
Plus a game like Eve Online really exists to satisfy that simish player, the people
Right.
that are really interested in the stats and stuff. And it's proven that while there is a dedicated following to that game, it has proven one thing over and over again, that there needs to be a strong MMO game out there, and it's been WoW to this point, that can be accessible across a big range of player styles. And that is what this needs to be. This game, foregoing the idea that only Jedis can have lightsabers and it takes forever to get there, and foregoing the space sim side of it, that I think that's for some people, they're like, oh, I want it to be more hardcore than this, but I don't think you make any money making a game based on Star Wars that tries to go down that path. I think this is the way they've done this, and I wouldn't call it simple, but this simplified approach perhaps to the gameplay, I think, is going to be good for them.
So with the ships, so that is how your ship's going to play out in combat and in that mini game. You will use your ship to travel from area to area and whatnot. But it'll be your home too. It's where you store your stuff. You're gonna be able to store stuff on board the ship. It's where your crew's gonna live. It's gonna be like Mass Effect in the Normandy.
Well, and so you are gonna get to play
this thing you report back to all the time.
Right, it's your clubhouse, and it makes so much more sense. I mean, I know with I really dug the idea of hideouts in City of Heroes, City of Villains, and having your own little Hall of Justice. But it was always this amorphous place you went to. Whereas, your ship makes sense. It's the place you go to get from point A to point B, and you trick it out for I assume speed or firepower or shields or whatever you want. So along those lines, talking about characters, have you guys already decided what class you're going to play?
I think so.
I think so.
Well, Adam, you go first.
All right, now real quick, understand right now that I am pretty much ambivalent, and I honestly have not decided, and it occurs to me that some people may be like me, where they have a lot of enthusiasm, but they haven't read everything out there so far. So in addition to telling me what you guys are going to do, I'd love to get kind of a walkthrough of what the different options are.
Okay, let's see. So we have both Republic and Sith sides. And they're not really good or bad. And they've made that very clear that within those constructs of picking a faction, you can still choose to be good or evil, regardless of whether you're Sith or Republic. So that's up to you how you want to play that storyline. Sith side gets Sith Warrior, Sith Inquisitor, and Sith Warriors like your Darth Maul, Sith Inquisitor sort of like your Palpatine, much more of a Force energy wielder.
Wizard.
Yeah, wizard. Bounty hunter is gets all the shiny toys with the rockets and the missile launchers and all that stuff, and the Imperial agent, sort of a spy, sniper sort of class. And on Republic, you've got, of course,
is it spy sniper, or I got the vibe that it was more assassin.
To be fair, I shouldn't pigeonhole that
rogue,
because
that kind of thing.
Yeah, okay.
I shouldn't pigeonhole that because the classes really, with their advanced classes, it looks like you've got 6 or 7 options on how you can really specialize these classes. So I don't want to appear like I'm pigeonholing it.
Right.
But don't they, Adam, kind of they still sort of boil down to, this is your rogue class, this is your tank class, your sword armor guy, this is your mage.
Yeah. If you're come from a traditional MMO background and you're like, I really want to play melee tank class. Yeah, you can roll the Jedi as your melee tank class. You want to play your ranged healer. You can yeah, absolutely. You can certainly create those analogs in this experience. So, Republic
on the Republic side, yeah.
Yeah, so you got your Jedi Knights, your frontline, Mace Windu, Anakin Skywalker type, Obi-Wan Kenobi, they would consider more of a
consular.
The counselor, much more of a thinking man's Jedi game. And really what's going to happen is each of these classes is going to give you a sort of different thematic storyline experience. They're all going to be different. You've got your trooper, which is, your very front line, wearing the armor, sort of the analog to the bounty hunter. And what's the last one there? I'm missing one on Republic side right now. Smuggler is the sort of the cover class. It looks like it takes a lot of borrows a little bit from like the covering in Mass Effect, and
he's got his little portable wall and all that.
But he can also hide behind natural objects. As you enter a room, you sort of see these green silhouettes that kind of indicate to you where you can hide behind
energy shields you drop. So you can always make sure that if you're a cover specialty, you've always got some sort of cover you can hide behind. So with that said, for those listening who don't know, Brian and I'll talk about it at the end of the show, or we'll promote it in the closing. We got 2 guilds going. You guys, I was surprised, Scott, that you guys chose just for right now to kind of commit to one faction. I figured with BioWare promising, such different storylines between the classes, we decided early on we were going to roll both guilds, and Brian runs one and I run one, and we're just going to roll alts in both sides so we can experience the story and still all play together.
Right. That is still the case with our players, even though we've rolled Horde in World of Warcraft since the guild was formed 4 or 5 years ago. Everyone is encouraged to play whatever they want. So if they're in the guild, I mean, to be in the guild is key, and that's where you're going to raid with your friends, and that's where you're going to get your best gear, and that's where you want to run your mains and all that sort of thing. But they're all encouraged to do whatever they want. So everybody in our guild's got alts on the alliance side and on different servers, and there's no rule that says they can't do any of that. It just with a guild of our size, 7,000 players, it's so much easier to manage with a team of officers and a guild leader when you're talking a single faction. Now, this game may present different stuff. We may get into that and go, oh, well, this isn't so bad to manage both sides. Whatever. If that happens, we'll deal with that when we get there. But right now, it's looking, a lot like WoW does it, and so in that case, it's just easier for us to maintain that community.
I'm split. I know I'm rolling right out of the gate. Immediately, my first character will be a Jedi Counselor, because I know that's going to be the mysteries of the Force and the ancient secrets of the Force, and that's going to be the storyline that's going to give me, and I'm really interested in that telekinetic power it has and the crowd control, and I'm going to roll a healer. That way because I'm really looking forward to doing all the group stuff.
Dude, I tell you, man, nobody hates a healer. Nobody's pissed off when a healer shows up.
Exactly. So I'm really, and I'm totally, not to toot my own horn, but I was a great healer in Star Wars Galaxies, and I think Star Wars Galaxies, being a medic, is harder than being a healer in World of Warcraft, and I know it's hard being a healer in World of Warcraft. So,
sure.
I can embrace it. I really enjoy it, and I'm really looking forward to doing a lot of stuff with as many people as possible. And so, Jedi Counselor is really going to probably be my primary right out of the gate. And I am also going to roll a Sith Inquisitor at the same time to kind of help manage guild and, do things over on that side.
Right.
And same thing, I will probably roll towards being more of a healer. We'll see how the guild shakes out. But right now, those are going to be my two analogs right out of the gate. But I'll be honest, I'm rolling alts immediately because there are names I got to capture.
Oh, that's hilarious. I didn't even think about names.
Too. Yeah, I'm rolling whatever the hell I can get in and play as much as I can that first weekend. I mean, I'm playing every damn thing I can get my hands on. But
exactly.
My primary characters. So this is the plan, and I should also mention this about picking a side in our guild. We have found a tremendous amount of fun in side picking. By picking a side, we attack the Alliance all the time. We're doing city raids all the time. We're PvPing the crap out of people. There's a fun part of this, which is, dude, we're Horde, you're Alliance, suck it. And I don't want that to be lost. I hope that we have a lot of Sith pride after we've now chosen this. And we, every time we see an Alliance, we're flipping them off in the game, because that's fun. That's fun to have that. We're not jerks about it. I just mean within the game's context. We're on an RP server, so it almost fits there.
That's a really good idea, because the original claim was that, we're pretty much one clubhouse, but with two branches. I wonder if over time the reality of it suddenly kind of becomes, or it was like, well, I'm NSFW, suck a Diamond Club. That'll be interesting.
Friendly competition. Yeah,
absolutely. And here's the thing too, though. We're hoping, friends of the show and friends of Brian and friends of mine are, people I know from Galaxies. They're already at guild. We're certainly going to ally and adversary against people and, make the most of it. But I hear you. See, in Galaxies, we didn't have the problem of not being able to communicate to the opposite faction. You could. And, it turned out over time, a lot of my regular game friends were Imperial players, Hey,
man, I'm not racist against Imperials. Some of my best friends are Imperials.
I love Imperials too. It doesn't matter. I got a lightsaber in my hand. I'm cool. I swear. Right. So how about you, Brian? What is it? I'm dying to know, because we have not had this conversation. I've been wondering this actually.
Okay. Well, do we get an answer for? I guess.
I forgot to get my.
Yeah. What's your heart set on?
I am going, since we're going to be Sith, and I'll probably roll there to start with and get the guild going. I will probably roll Bounty Hunter immediately. I'm always a ranged guy anyway.
Right.
And that guy is a badass at range, and I'm freaking stoked to be the big damage dealer dude floating in the air and dropping bombs and missiles. I can't wait.
I want to play them all. I'm going to be honest. I want to play them all.
It probably surprises nobody listening to this that I, in general, like tricky classes. I like, as soon as I get started figuring out, there's not a lot of excitement for me in playing as a tank where it's just like damage you, damage me, damage you, damage me, back and forth. My numbers are bigger than yours, so I will slowly progress forward. I'm always trying to be like, okay, how can I pull a fast one and make a kill that's way out of my league because I got lucky? And as a result, I die a lot in MMOs. They started calling Electronome Detronome because of all the debt he had accrued for dying so many times. And so likewise, when I look at, certainly on the Sith side, my gut says I would want to be the bounty hunter, but what's really interesting is I'm looking at a breakdown of the percentages of what everyone's going for. And out of the 100 plus people on the Sith, on the roster so far, we've got 20% of them are Sith warriors, 23% are bounty hunters, 19% are Sith Inquisitors, and only 10% are Imperial agents. The rest are all undecided. So I may, just for grins, try the least popular class over here. So on the
sounds like your kind of dude.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Sneaky kind of, tricky guy. But I'll tell you, man, in my heart, my guts, all I want to do is play that cowboy smuggler that I saw in that preview video, because
no
it's
Jedi love in this room, really? Like, no Jedi love here?
There's gonna be tons of Jedi, man. I want to be. That's what I loved about the Star Wars universe, was how
there's a lot of variety, yeah.
Space gritty it was, and I love the idea of the Space Ranger.
Well, plus, who's your like, what's your favorite Star Wars film, Brian?
Oh, easily Empire.
Okay, now when I was a kid, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, and I'm not that much older than you, I hated the second movie because it was dark and scary. But now that I love the third one, which was all the Muppets and everything. You go a little bit further down your life and you go, no, wait a minute, I've got it backwards. Empire is a masterpiece.
Right.
The other thing was for kids.
Right.
And now I'm completely flipped. And so I'm drawn to Sith naturally anyway, because I like the complexity of the darker. Yeah. I do. It's the reason we went Horde in World of Warcraft. It's the reason I always pick that side, because they're not bad. They're just misunderstood.
Well, it's complicated. To be honest, I think like it's the I remember in the old D&D days when you could be lawful or chaotic and also good or evil. My favorite character class was to play chaotic good. Somebody who wanted to do good but didn't really, have respect for established law and order. And I think playing good on the Sith side is the closest analog I can find to that in the game. And I think that's what I'm going to do when I play on the Sith. Now,
it's Han Solo, dude. That's what that is. It's Han Solo. That's exactly his character, and I'm always more drawn to that than Luke, who's all bright and shiny and
right. And boring. Do you guys can you look at the rosters for the other guilds on there and see what the breakdown is? Because I'm really curious. I'm sure there's some article out there that says overall what everyone's going for. But
right. So here on the Republic side in Diamond Club, we're not as popular as Not Safe for Wookiees, because he's Brian and I'm me. No, I'm just kidding. Everybody wants to be a bad guy, apparently. So we're only, I think we're at 76 folks as of today. I have 24% Jedi Knight, 18% Trooper, 16% Jedi Counselor.
Trooper looks fun, by the way.
Yeah, 12% Smuggler, and 30% Undecided.
Wow, that almost exactly tracks. And I'll tell you, I'm surprised how even all these numbers are, relatively speaking, in general, because when I first saw the categories, I'm like, well, it's obvious everybody's going to want to be a bounty hunter. But it's like, wow, I'm so wrong. Everyone sees different things in the Star Wars universe that they want to experience.
It does seem the strong pull is the sort of the DPFC type of classes. Like, I find that in all MMOs. Do you, Scott? That like the majority of players always want to be the hero in the front line, banging on the thing,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's for sure. And that's how they'll start. But then they'll diversify as time goes on. And this is not scientific, and this certainly isn't indicative of the final numbers. But somebody just today, we launched our official boards for Old Republic yesterday.
Yep.
And someone just put up today a poll. And remember, we have potentially upwards to 7,000 people jumping into this game when it comes out. And they asked, what are we going to roll on release? Sith Warrior at 17%, Bounty Hunter at 32%, Sith Inquisitor at 35%. And Imperial Agent at 14. I think that's pretty close to what you're seeing, and I think those stats are going to hold no matter what server you're on or who you're with.
I'm hoping it's the kind of thing where Imperial Agent. Now the thing, with Sith Warrior, Bounty Hunter, and Sith Inquisitor, you instantly think of what character experience you're going to get. Sith Warrior, you're Darth Maul. Bounty Hunter, you're Boba Fett. Sith Inquisitor, you're the Emperor. Imperial Agent, unfortunately, what you'd have to think of is stuff from like the Star Wars expanded universe, like Mara Jade or something like that. You know, that's I wonder if that's why Imperial Agent is less popular on both of our polls here.
It's not so clear cut. It's not an obvious analog to the usual Star Wars fantasies. I agree. It's it's a little different.
But it's also indicative if you look at overall, and I have stats of this somewhere, but overall World of Warcraft player base, the rogues are the least played, or one of not least, but one of the least played players. But they're the tricky, sneaky guys. I think it is a class that very specific people dig on, like Brian.
Griefers.
Yeah, and it's still going to represent a huge number of people, but I think it will always be a little lower. And you know what? Lore-wise, that's kind of good. I like that.
I think you're right. And I guess my only disappointment is if I'm going to play, I may chicken out and do Bounty Hunter like everyone else. But it's like I want to play something unusual, but it just seems like Imperial Agent is, what I don't want to do is have a big battle going on over there and hear my friends laughing and yelling and healing each other and, oh, well, that was so close. And meanwhile, I'm the one sneaking around the back to, try to appear in the back behind their lines.
Right.
It's like,
here's what you do. You roll your alts, grab your names right off on the first few days, whatever that ends up being. And, you see how the story plays out early on. Like I said, they're all going to be really thematically different. They're all going to feel different. And I'm expecting that, I think I want to play this role, but I may try Smuggler and go, holy poop, this is awesome.
Right.
I'm totally open to being surprised. I really am.
Smuggler weirds me out just a little bit. He's got no armor. He looks a little funky. He looks like he's just constantly hiding behind stuff. He may end up being brilliant, but right now he is the least interesting to me.
2 words, Scott. Space Cowboy. If you want the Malcolm Reynolds experience, you go Smuggler.
Yeah, that's probably true, but I feel like I can get that roguish thing with my bounty hunter and aren't they kind of analogs anyway on the two sides?
Yeah. As far as play balance goes, that's as I understand it. You've got
they're both similar archetypes. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what, I'll be interested to see. I don't know. It's like one thing I liked about Galaxies was the idea that seeing someone with a lightsaber was a big deal, and that's the way they are in the movies. Having lightsabers is a pretty big deal, except for the prequels. But I don't know. I'm worried. We're talking about pitfalls. The thing I'm worried about is that I'll get bored of lightsabers. That would be the worst thing to me if a lightsaber ceased to be cool or awesome because there were so many of them everywhere.
Well, here's the reality. The reality was in Galaxies, I was playing up until about January when it was getting really hard to find groups to do stuff. And it was just, people were fighting over. My heroic group was suddenly running PvP. These people hated PvP. It's like, where are you going? Come back. But there were lightsabers everywhere. Eventually they made Jedi a starting class. It's not this difficult thing. It's difficult to gear, difficult to really outfit yourself at top level. So the time grind ultimately ended up being the same as unlocking a Jedi. But there were lightsabers everywhere. And once everybody had the novelty of swinging a lightsaber around, you'd be surprised how many people don't like being melee in a space game.
Wow. All right. So I guess we're running out of time here. So real quick, wish list of things you want to experience in the game.
All right, I'll start. For this game to succeed for me, I need to feel like there are tons of planets. I know we have a finite number that have been announced.
17 announced, and they're saying there's a bunch of instant stuff too. So there's 20 or 30 like side asteroid bases and stuff like that as well.
Right. So there's even more. Right, there's even more than that. So yeah. I know that we've been given that, but what I want is more of I want it to feel, and this is actually the only knock I have against Mass Effect because I love that series, is that world doesn't feel as big as it could. And when I say world, I mean that universe. I want this to feel like I can go all the way to Tatooine. I can go all the way to Hoth. I want that to feel like a big space. I want those planets themselves to feel huge. I don't want to feel walled in. If they can give me that, where it's not just quest hub and instances, I will be very happy. My big wish list is that they somehow accomplish the hard-to-do task, which is to make that universe feel real, alive, and huge. If they can do that, I'll be really happy.
Yeah, and I think, and I've already touched on this, and what a weird thing for me to be concerned about. I just want to see a lot of novel self-expression in the game. I have high confidence that I hesitate to even say what I want to experience from a storytelling perspective because BioWare tend to be such masters of that. I'm not worried about that at all. I'm worried about the interaction of person to person, and yeah. I've liked what I've seen so far of randomly bumping into people and saying, "Oh, I'm doing that quest too. Hop in, let's go." That seems to work really well. And again, I'm not too worried about that. I want to, for as much effort as they're putting into the storytelling, it's obvious that that this game, they're trying to make it about more than the addictiveness of random drops. And so I hope they go all the way and allow you to feel an ownership and customization of your character that you don't currently get from World of Warcraft, something closer to what I enjoyed with City of Heroes.
I can
But you, Adam?
appreciate that. I can appreciate that. Me, myself, what am I looking forward to doing first? Like, what's the wish list? I'm really looking forward to exploring these worlds all over again. I was one thing I did enjoy about Galaxies was roaming the worlds and running across stuff, except this time I know that BioWare has taken a lot of TLC to make sure that if I'm going to take the time to go explore all the little nooks and crannies in the world, there are going to be things for me to find. That's one of the things I'm really looking forward to. And I'll be honest, I am really looking forward to playing through and leveling up and playing through these stories with friends. I'm not worried about them making dumb choices. I'm really looking forward to embracing the adventure and seeing how this stuff plays out. And I've become a big BioWare geek, and I really am. I'm just looking forward to grouping up with friends and exploring the world. I know that sounds so played out, but I'm there. I'm sold, and I'm not expecting. I think there's gonna be things I'm gonna have to get used to, or I'm not gonna love every little nuance game mechanic wise they may add to the game, but I think overall, I'm going to be making a new virtual home in this game for a long, long time. That's for sure.
One more thing they should do, and this is just me throwing this out as a small detail. Let's have a Mac version, and let's not tie it into Origin.com all the time, EA. That all is stupid. You need to get this into many hands as you can. And if you think that Mac player base is small, you need to think again. Those people really want to play your game.
Absolutely. That's been my favorite trend in PC gaming of the last year, is watching the embracing of Mac players into the clubhouse. I mean, the way Steam's done it with all the Source Engine games, with Team Fortress 2 and stuff, I think has been really, really great. And I'm surprised that we haven't heard any significant announcement about Mac stuff so far. Like, they haven't ruled it out, but have they announced anything, Adam?
Not yet. Not that I'm aware of. Before we get to, I just want to touch, because we really should mention the Origin thing a little more. Scott brought up a really good point with that. And something that I think gets lost to a lot of people is, it is not sort of a management system the way Steam is. And a lot of us live in Steam. We love Steam. We use it all the time. You can just buy the game through the Origin store, download the game, and then be done with it. Never have to run Origin again. So it's not as from a business point of view, I totally can appreciate why EA made Tor an exclusive to be downloaded from their site. I totally get that. Pain in the butt.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've never liked my MMOs tied into Steam. So I bought the collector's edition, and I'm fine with that. But for those who are going to go digital download, just know you don't have to be tied into Origin forever. It's just to purchase the game.
My only rant would be this. It isn't so much that it's on Origin or that's the place you have to get it. It's that they are limiting themselves to that platform. I know so many gamers who love and adore Steam and have as a result decided not to use any other downloadable service. And they love Steam, and they hear this isn't coming on Steam, and they're boycotting the game.
Well, they say that, but I had that attitude. I'm like, Origin's stupid. I don't want to start another lesser service. I just like my Steam. But then the moment they said Origin exclusive, I'm like, well, guess what? I'm getting Origin. But I'm going to resent it, and I'm going to be hostile about it because they are forcing me into it. And I think I will be the way you suggested, Adam, where I'll just install it and never use it again. And to be honest, if I can register it in Steam, I will. I don't usually bother to do that with outside games that I grab, but I love the Steam ecosystem and the way it keeps me in touch with everyone.
We really rely, Chat Realm and Diamond Club and all of our virtual friends online all do actually really utilize Steam. So that's an idea. Maybe I will do that.
It's just so dumb that I just don't understand why they want to limit it. It's like saying, I only want to put this thing out on one platform and limited your exposure. You are going going up against a behemoth that puts the game out on launch day on both Mac and PC, that is very interested in getting into as many machines as possible. And I guarantee if WoW was released today, they would have Steam support. If this was 2004 and Steam existed, they would do it, because why would you limit your potential audience? Just get it, put it on Origin, no problem, but put it everywhere.
Yeah, but you know what this is this is a case of someone in some section of EA is launching this Origin thing, and they're like, well, you realize that, we flat out know what a slam dunk the Old Republic's going to be. Why don't we just tie the two together? Brilliant. And then we get a launch, and then we get, but they don't realize that it costs you something when you do that, whether you want to admit it or not.
Well, since we're talking pre-orders, before we wrap this up, I'm curious, Scott, what version did you buy of the game?
Standard. That's 150 is too much for collectors. That's way over my.
So standard. You didn't even do digital deluxe?
No, I'm doing the standard. I got the boxed edition. That's the thing, is I'm fighting this Origin thing so hard that Amazon's putting a box on my doorstep.
Wow. But did you pay the $5 extra to pre-order?
No, I did.
No,
They've got it for $59 up there, and I have Prime, so it'll be there the morning of. I mean, it's just easy for me.
But if you pay as I understood it, if you paid the $5 pre-order fee, then one of the things you got with the pre-order was early access. I guess you're just dependent. You're planning on. You feel like you got friends of the biz. You feel like you're gonna get in the beta regardless.
No, I think
Amazon,
I will end up in the beta
if
at some point.
Pre-order, it's like anything you pre-order on Amazon. They don't charge your card until it ships, but they complete the transaction and they immediately send you that pre-order early access code right away. So yeah, like Scott says, the box will be here on launch day, but I have the early access code and I'm all registered to go the minute they open those doors. It's like, here I come, woo! So
right.
That's by the way, that's adorable of you, Scott. Physical media, that's very hipster. You can enjoy your Pabst Blue Ribbon.
20th century.
And this is so not me, dude. This is so anti-me right now. But I'm so mad about the Origin thing. I just couldn't.
No, I'm glad somebody's mad and somebody's doing something about it.
I'm really surprised. How could you resist all the virtual goods in the collector's box?
Well, that's the other thing, is I'm not a big fan of collectors anyway, because I feel like I get suckered into that stuff, and then I really don't care after that. It's on a shelf somewhere, and I never look at that stuff again. So I'm trying to. It's more about fighting my own demons and not falling into that trap again. But Blizzard's always been really well priced for their stuff. It's like $89 or whatever it is for their collector's editions.
The pricing of the 150, if you really like that statue they're including, and I don't really care about the statue. It really was all the virtual items they're including, although the books and the map included, I was kind of interested in. The statue would run normally $70-$80. So you combine that with the cost of the game, the price makes sense. But
I feel like they're yanking us, like they're just going, nicky picky. Here's a little fake little thing you get.
Why they got me? And the reason I pulled the trigger was, playing in Galaxies, I ended up having 2 accounts because at the time you can only have 1 character per server. And I just bought the standard box. I was like, I don't need that fancy collector's edition. Who needs virtual goggles? What the hell is that? Who's going to want that, right? Guess what? They never, ever, ever in the life of the game ever added like eyewear to the game.
Oh,
so
wow.
the only eyewear you ever had was the eyewear from the collector's edition. And so if you had those, you were cool kid.
Yeah.
It's one of those cool kid items. And then in the collector's edition for Old Republic, there is access to a lounge and a store where you can buy virtual items, cosmetic things that no one else will ever have access to.
That's so hard. I guess if they're saying
that's why I did it.
If they're saying you will never have access to it, because I did middle of the road. I did the digital deluxe, which it was like $20 extra, but you get a few virtual goods. I don't think I get access to the fancy pants clubhouse that you guys are in. But
yeah.
Well, all right. So anyway, all right. Last thing before we go, enthusiasm on a scale from Alderaan to Coruscant. Where are you at right now? And I'm trying to temper
Alderaan
myself.
being bottom of the scale.
Yeah. Well, they get blowed up at the end of
yes, they do.
New Hope.
Like a million voices screaming out.
That's right.
If I had to, let's see, where does Tatooine in your scale? Where is that?
Well, if there's a bright center of the galaxy, that's the planet farthest from it.
It's from.
I'm just shy of Coruscant because I want to not be. I've been through this MMO wrangle before, and and this is the closest I think we're going to get to me not being disappointed with a new MMO. So I'm going to hold back just a little bit and just say I'm I'm entering the star system, almost to Coruscant, my little shuttle. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm almost there.
All right, but okay, wow. So you got that trajectory.
I'm way up there though. I'm excited.
I'm gonna go Nar Shaddaa. Not quite Coruscant, but a bustling metropolis with a lot of. That's where my enthusiasm's at. Very, very high.
I'm also maybe in Kashyyyk, where all my food has hair in it.
What about you, Adam?
What's beyond Coruscant? Seriously, my brain went into meltdown mode, 6 weeks ago. Last 2-3 weeks, my brain has been meltdown. I'll be honest, I have lost complete and utter objectivity, and I'm sold. Could I please have my crack now? Really, I just isn't here yet.
That's awesome.
Planet Crack, then, is where you're at.
Planet Crack, yes. Planet
All
Crack
right.
for Adam. Oh,
Cool.
God, there's the show title, isn't it?
All right, that's it. That's all we got for this episode of the
Uh-oh.
Cantina Band. But hey, real quick, what do you got to promote as far as your guilds and such,
Yeah,
Scott?
what do you want to talk about right now? Let people know
Well,
about that.
if anyone out there is listening to this and wants, if they are interested in what AIE is doing, and I don't want to pull anybody away from your two guilds. That sounds like fun. I'll probably roll.
You're like,
a
your
tune.
guilds are very small, and they need
Well,
every
we are
member they
hoping
can
that maybe
get.
we can form some sort of adversary ally thing with you, and who knows?
That
maybe
would be
we'll all
fun.
still end up playing
Maybe we
together
need to look
anyway.
at servers and start talking about all that. I don't even know if they haven't released Realms yet, or not Realms.
No,
whatever
what
they're gonna
happens
call them.
is what with the guilds and where we're at right now is you form up, you fill in parameters like your PVE, PvP, which time zone, things like that. Just before I think when early access is going to start, we're going to hit another phase of the guild stuff where you're going to be able to tell them these 5 Republic guilds I want to be friends or adversaries against, and these 5 Sith guilds I want to be friends with or adversaries against. And
Interesting.
they
See,
try
that could
to
be
keep
fantastic.
groups together while maintaining some sort of server load as they assign guilds to different servers. So that's why we want to make these alliances early instead of after the game launches.
Yeah, that's a slam dunk then for
yeah,
sure.
so definitely we'll keep in touch and we'll see. As the weeks go by, we'll see what happens. But
Yeah, in the meantime, if they go to frogpants.com, there's a link to the forums, and in there is our big gaming community. And if people are interested in checking it out, they sure can. But yeah, I'm very interested in how maybe we can have some of that play out. But I'm stoked for this game to the point that I don't know. Who knows? Who knows what the future holds for how we talk about the game?
Well,
I'll sleep
it
it
took me a
there.
second. I'm like, well, that's a very odd way for him to. It's kind of a weird, coy way to. Oh, I get
I
it.
get it, but
I get
absolutely. Well, Scott,
But I
thank
would-
you so
I'm-
much.
I'm-
I really appreciate you, going out of your way to come hang out with us and just shoot the poop.
Well, when there's poop to shoot, I am always there. And if anytime, you guys, seriously, I love talking about this game. As we get closer and we know more, and even after we've started to dig into the game, I would be more than happy to pop in here and there and chat some more about this epic upcoming title.
Anything else you want to promote besides Frogpants?
Frogpants.com, Twitter / Extra Life. What else? I'm on Google Plus. They can find me at frogpants.com/plus. I made a little forwarder there for that. What else? That'll get them everything. If they go to frogpants.com, it'll connect to the rest of my world.
Right on.
How about you, Brian? What do you want to promote?
You know what? My Google Plus. Head on over to Brian Brushwood on Google Plus or at Shwood, SHWOOD on Twitter. That's it for me.
As for me, Twitter is where I'm most active. That's AT0MXII. Please follow me. I love Twitter and I love followers, and I need more friends. I don't have enough friends, so be my friend. Please. Thank you. Until
it.
next time, thanks for listening, folks. Bye-bye.
Hey, we don't serve their kind here.
What, who, the droids?
We can make them wait outside.
No, droids are fine. But you two will have to wait outside.
Okay.
Why don't you wait out by the speeder? We don't want any trouble.
See? I told you we'd get thrown out.
This happened to you every week.
Dude, we didn't even set anything on fire this time. Fine.